Ahmed. Today is Saturday at 3 o'clock in the United States. So depending on where you are, if you're on the East Coast, it's Saturday at 3 o'clock. In Liberia, what is it, 5 hours ahead? 6 p.m. Wherever you are watching from the world. Again, welcome to Focus on Liberia on the Marketplace. Today, in our latest installment of Personal Finance, we are talking real estate. Real estate. Is it is it a job creator? What type of real estate to invest in? Why do people invest in real estate? I'm also going to look at the other side of it, the flipping, buying and flipping real estate. We're going to look at the one that's actually done on the stock market, which is the REITs, real estate investment trust. We have no other person to pick but our own William King. I think he has a career. He made a career in real estate. So we're going to pick his brain today. So wherever you are, take your time. We're going to do about an hour, 30 minutes. Bring all your questions, and we're here to answer all of your questions. Again, joining me, my co-host, as always, Larry Kennedy. It's a pleasure having you here. I know you've only been with us maybe as co-host. What is it? Three weeks in a row now. So
About 3 weeks.
please,
Yeah.
would you please introduce yourself for our audiences? So, we're going to do this a few more times and then until they get, familiar with who you are. I'm sure they do know you, but we just want them to make sure that they really know your resume and who you are. So please introduce yourself, and then I will have William do a little introduction about himself, and then we'll dive right into it. But again, thank you.
So thanks a lot for having me, Gabriel. And it's a pleasure having William King, the guru on real estate, sitting in the hot seat today. For people who don't know me out there, I love discussing everything finance, economics, business related. If you're sick and tired of being sick and tired of discussing politics, it's always great being with a Focus on Liberia because they're here to educate the people on things that matter to you, right? So if you're spending 2 hours a day discussing politics, you want a little change in direction a little bit, discuss something more beneficial to you, this is the place to be. So Larry Kennedy, I'm an adjunct instructor. I teach finance and economics and some other technical subjects and love being here. So I'll swing it over to the man of the hour, Mr.
Yeah.
William King.
Well, welcome. I know you're regular here, but today we're switching seat. We're gonna pick your brains on the real estate part of it. Larry and I will do a lot of that. So, but yeah, tell us a little bit about your background. I know sometimes we introduce ourselves. We don't really go in depth of who we are and what we do, how we, got to where we are. So for today, on real estate, please do take that time. Just say about 2 minutes or less to do that for us, for the audience.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Gabriel. Thanks, Larry, for that wonderful introduction. And I want everyone to know when they say that you're a guru, where I come from, that means that you're always learning more and more things, and learning never stops. And
That's right.
there's always something that is going to surprise you. All right.
Yeah.
So with that being said, I've been interested in real estate since I was let's say 18, 19 years old. And right now I'm actually 40. So I've kind of put in some years in this space. And then in 2004, 2005 in California, I actually got my real estate license. And then a few years later, I got my broker license. But early in my career, when I looked at real estate, it was more personal for me, meaning I didn't really use my license to represent other folks. It was mostly for me. And I started my first flip with some partners of mine in 2005, and then moved into other spaces within the real estate. And then in 2012, I actually got an apartment building and got into the pretty much, I would like to say, property management, wealth building, legacy, and so forth side of it, right? And over time, just kind of went from from there. But I worked in the utility field. So there's two things that I loved, and today we'll just focus on one. But my other passion is electricity, and I spent 13 years working for one of the biggest utility company in terms of also renewable portfolio west of the Mississippi, Southern California, Edison, where I did about 13 years there. And for those who would like to know a little bit more about my thoughts on electricity for Liberia, you can find an article that I actually wrote, electricity in the Liberian context, that I actually put online and so forth. So back to real estate, about 2.5, 3 years ago, I decided to do a career transition and focus on heavily into our real estate. Now going into the side where now I'm kind of servicing clients, looking to do some development and doing other things that way. And my preference is actually doing this through funds structure, real estate funds. I'm on my way. Right, exactly. So I'm on my way to that journey. It's going to be pretty interesting. But over the time, I've been kind of just focused on the professional and personal development because this is a space where you don't need to know everything, but you need to know fairly quite a bit, especially if you're going to be dealing with other people money. So that being said, Gabriel, Larry, thanks. I'll stop there with the introduction. And today we talk about real estate, from the personal side and from the, investment side, right? Personal finance. So we're not going to get into the heavy institutional heavy lifter.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
We'll just, but if we need to, we will.
Perfect. All right, Larry, let me start with the firing rounds, and then you can come in. All right, so Will, thank you for that introduction. I think that was brilliant. That's a very extensive career. You went from real estate to utilities, and now you're back in real estate. Stay one place, my man. All right. So with that being said, so tell us, what is real estate? When somebody come to you and say, I want to get in real estate, or what is real estate? Why would you define real estate to that person? Or what would you tell them if they ask you that question as what is real estate? What would you say to that individual?
Right. I mean, and to keep it real simple, right? It's saying, real estate is a piece of land on this God-given earth, right? That you may own. And you may also use it for shelter. You may use it to do business on it. You may use it to generate income, or you may just keep it and hold on to it. So in so many words, I just keep it simple and say, hey, real estate is land. And take it to another level is real estate is land with a habitable dwelling place. Real estate is a preference for a certain location that you may like, and you feel or you see yourself doing something with that piece of asset. So land and asset go hand in hand. It can be a liability, but we'll just keep it in the land space and asset space for right now.
Okay, perfect. Larry, do you have a
yeah, so I want to kind of take this thing to another level, but
nice.
So the show is called Focus on Liberia, right? And I want to look at real estate from a perspective of an international investor looking to do real estate investing in Liberia. Is investing in real estate in Liberia a good idea? Just your personal take on that. Should I put money into investing in real estate in Liberia?
Yeah.
And I think you might have a good reason to answer that question. I'm glad, Larry, man. That is a brilliant question.
Let's just go into that, right?
Right. Let's just get into that.
Good. So yes, I think real estate is a good investment in Liberia, but it depends with your mindset and how you're looking at it, because you cannot look at the current circumstances right now be it if you have a slight bend towards a certain political affiliation,
Mm-hmm.
or a certain political party, and
Right.
decide, hey, you know what, I'm gonna not invest or choose to invest in real estate in Liberia, right? So what I think will drive you to determine if this is a good investment is when you ask yourself, am I passionate about Liberia? Do I see myself going back and forth over there? Is this something that I long for? And I think when you have that passion, you follow your passion, and then on top of that, you can add the real estate there. And so, yes, it is a great investment in Liberia. However, if you're looking at it for some kind of rapid appreciation, then that underlining factor, if you're looking for appreciation, then I'm not sure that the numbers encourages you to put money in that space. But if you're looking at it as from a place of passion, that you want to share a legacy with your kids and so forth, then yes.
But one thing that tends to scare a lot of people is the stories we all tend to hear. The stories about people selling property 2, 3, 4 times over. It's kind of it scares a lot of people, And then the judicial system being so weak in the country,
Right.
it makes it kind of hard for someone living here in the States to want to buy property in Liberia. But I kind of agree with you that if you're optimistic, if you have an optimistic view on Liberia, yeah, definitely, you might want to consider it. But do you see the judicial system, the weakness of the judicial system as being a threat in terms of helping international investors? Because over here in California, if you have an issue, you can take it down to JP court in California or take it over to Superior Court in California. I don't know if you guys have, I think you guys do have Superior Courts.
Yeah,
but real estate and the court system kind of go hand in hand. So what do you think about this whole business of people selling properties 2, 3 times over in Liberia? Do you think that creates a threat and scare people from want to invest in Liberia?
Yeah, definitely. Any time where if you're an international investor, or even if you are Liberian and you've worked very hard for your hard-earned coppers, and you get ready to go to Liberia and you hear about land issues, as far as you can buy a land, and then next thing you know, the person who sold you the land wasn't the correct person. And when you go to the court system, you hear the horror stories about land matters being in courts tied up for over 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years. That in and of itself, I believe, prevents quite a bit of Liberians from investing. So we do lose quite a bit of dollars to those kind of uncertainties. Now, from the international side, if you're an international corporation, oftentimes what I do see is they're not focused on the ownership of the land versus the control of the land. And what I mean is international corporations will look at maybe the ability to lease and to have that land under contract for quite a bit of time. And then from there, they may build stores, they may build different manufacturing companies and so forth, not on a huge scale, but they actually use that. And from there, they're able to make money. So they're not, they look at just real estate as just a small piece of what they actually focus on. So internationally, if you have something else you want to do in Liberia, yes, because you're kind of leasing. But that's where you have the caveat emptor, which is a little bit more due diligence. And surprisingly, even with those challenges of the land issues and not knowing who owns lands, we still do see that there's, and it's mind-boggling, but the only answer I can give to that is that there's a huge passion of Liberians to still go in there and deal with that craziness, to see if maybe they can just find that one land that is free and clear, and that they can conduct their transaction on, right? To acquire. But we lose a lot.
Right. Go ahead, Gabriel. You're on mute.
Yeah, well, thank you. I think that was a brilliant answer there. So, with that being said, right? What would you say to the typical Liberians here who wanting to, what type of due diligence do you think the typical Liberian here, whether it's, the diaspora like you and
Mhm.
I and uh, Larry, or an investor from here who's looking at Liberia to invest in, what are the fundamental due diligence that you think they should do in order when they're acquiring land in there? Like, maybe just
Yeah,
give us a ABC
right.
steps that they should look into. Right.
Thank you very much. Let me start off with saying this, that we are structured and we're very particular when it comes to our transaction with
Mhm,
real estate in Western world.
mhm,
So if we were to go out there to buy a place right now, we would more than anything, okay, am I dealing with someone that's a licensed professional? And everybody that is within the supply chain, from
mhm,
the opening of a deal to the closing of a deal, we look to have a certain level of professionalism
mhm.
and experience in that field. However, something happens that's kind of bizarre when we fly in the plane, and I think there's something in the Atlantic Ocean. But once we're in the plane and we go to Liberia, we forget all of those fundamentals, right?
Mm,
And we tend to have this kind of a bravery that's not checked, and we engage in an unorthodox way of trying to go about purchasing a land or a property. And I think that's one faux pas, right? And I think for anyone looking to purchase a property or land in Liberia, I would say, um, think about if you want to buy something in the U.S. If it's 100K for a land, you want to say, okay, am I willing to spend 10% on professional services,
mm,
paying the right people to make sure that that this transaction that I do is something that is good and that there's a clear title for
mm.
this property, right? So then when you get to Liberia, you're actually spending more time vetting professional lawyers,
Right.
professional surveyors,
Yep.
speaking to folks about,
Who owns the
what
land? Right.
the prices are, right?
Right.
Because when you just go there and someone is selling land and you go to them directly and say, okay, you know what, I'm going to do this transaction, right? Okay, let's go to the title place, right? Okay, let's go to the deed place. Okay, let's go to the Minister of Public Works, right? So now what you're doing is that you're taking on these hats and these roles that normally you
You
were
wouldn't
never
have.
trained to do. So I would say the first thing is set aside capital, realize how important and passionate it is, and go to Liberia and pay the professionals so that you can make sure that you don't get into any mistakes.
Right. So typically, what you're saying, if you the same process that you will follow here if you were buying, a piece of real estate, when you go to Liberia, don't skip it. Follow it to the T, including paying whatever fees that comes along with it in order to secure that piece of property that you're trying to buy. Right.
Yes, you have to.
Right.
I mean, you have to. If not, you run into bad situations.
Right.
Bad situations, or you are, and especially building, right? It doesn't feel where you you have a family member in Liberia and you assume that, hey, they're not doing nothing all day, they can manage my construction. But you assume that they know everything about construction,
Exactly.
right? And they're not going to tell you no, right? They're going to say, man, I need to do this. My big brother's asking me to do this thing, but they don't know the mixture of the concrete. They don't know whether a contractor is doing something right or wrong. They don't know what foundation is and everything like that. But you want them to manage a whole construction project, right? And here in the US, you have to have a license, right? So when that happens and it backfires and it backfires, then what you have is you have unhappy clients, waste of money. And when they come back to the US, their experience has been that, man, Liberia is not a good place to conduct business in, right? But when we look underneath the whole layers, we see from the beginning there was some engagement that were very questionable. Just from your point, from you as going out there, that you wouldn't do in the U.S.
Hmm. All right, so let me ask you a couple of questions real quick, a couple of definitions and a quick question. So first question, is real estate a good place to invest in, number one? And number two, let's say I have $30,000 right now.
Mm-hmm.
Should I take that 30,000 and invest in real estate in Liberia, or should I take that 30,000 and invest in real estate in like rental properties here in the U.S.? What would be your take?
Yeah, that's a very tough one, right? Yeah. Because Larry, that's a very tough one. Because
that's from the professor. Go ahead, take a shot.
Right. I would say, first thing would, if you're married or if you're single, right? I would say have different conversations about maybe in the next 4 or 5 years, whether you see yourself doing more stuff in the U.S. or whether you see yourself doing more stuff in Liberia. And one question that I would avoid, or one assumption I would avoid making, is that does my 30,000 go further in Liberia than it would in the U.S., right? So you don't want to look at any real estate deal like that. You really don't, because what happens is your eyes get big and you say, oh, for 30,000, I can maybe build a 2-bedroom, 2-bath house in Liberia, versus here for 30,000, that's just a down payment, right? So let's talk investment. So if you're looking at an investment and you want to get into some real estate, you have a few choices, right? So one is you can pretty much put it in a REIT. REIT is a real estate investment trust, or you can invest via REITs. And so there are some publicly traded REITs out there. You have to look at them. You have to see which one have the mixture of real estate that you like. Some of them are just apartment buildings. Some of them are just malls. Right. Some of them are just industrial. Some of them focus on elderly homes, right? Retirement homes and so forth. So you have to actually say, okay, which one of these is an industry that I kind of have a leaning towards. And, then you can look to, with the help of a financial advisor, place some money in there. And so now you're really investing in real estate, but you're not getting your hands dirty. Now, if you are a hands-on entrepreneur, and you say, hey, you know what, I want to be the person that's the front face, right? I'd rather do something. So you would have to look right now, currently in the times, you would have to look 3 to 4 or 5 times hard to see what type of investment you could do with the down payment for real estate. If it's an apartment that you really want, or a condo, and so forth, then you really have to look at that and say, okay, hey, I want to be the front man. And lastly, most importantly, regardless of the area that you're going to be doing this in, make sure you get a professional licensed realtor that is familiar with that area and that's going to be able to guide you with some advice. So if you're looking to rent a place, he will let you know what the rents are in that area. He will let you know what the neighborhoods are like in that area. He will let you know what the current trend is in that area. He's going to also be held accountable to a higher standard because it's his license on the line. So that I think should be a good platform from which you can then mobilize that 30,000 that you actually have, right? Whether it's enough or not, that's something between you, the realtor, you and your tax guy, and you and whoever it is that manages or advises you on your personal finances, right? So that's what you would do if you were an investor. You would do those things first.
You're reading. Oh, I'm sorry, Gabriel. I was just
No,
looking
go
at some
ahead.
of the.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just
Go right
looking at
ahead.
some of the comments real quick, and I love what my man William King is saying. But some of the comments over here, like Flomo Livingston is saying he would take his 30,000 and invest in rental property in America, and I think we can follow that up with what Emmanuel Jackson is saying, because it goes to something that I mentioned earlier in terms of the legal system. I think people would be afraid to invest in Liberia because of the legal system, which is something Mr. King just said also.
Yeah.
And then Jimmy Eastman raised a good point in terms of saying you have to look at the ROI, the return on investment, and then the risk. So the risk in Liberia is a little bit higher, but we know in finance, risk requires compensation. So your return on investment will be a little bit higher in Liberia to match the risk. And then Anito is just saying that she bought a land long time ago. But she said she bought a land from the Willie family in Monrovia. She paid $20,000 and she didn't get the land.
Wow.
So Dave Coley is saying he would take a chance in Liberia, which is great. Liberia offers huge opportunities. But again, that's when you look at the 5 core principles of finance and investing, risk required compensation is very risky in Liberia, but still the compensation is high. But I don't want to get into politics, but take a look at the government officials buying land, building condos, building properties, and you kind of think, hey, something good must be happening in Liberia. Right. But then again, you stand a good chance of losing your money. So yeah, what William King is saying is on point. You have to kind of look at it both ways to see which one really, really makes sense. So Gabriel, swing it over to you.
No, I wanted to add to that if you look at the real estate market in Liberia too, right? It's fragmented. When I mean fragmented, I mean in the sense that I don't know if we even have a licensing structure for realtors, right? The due diligence that we talked about, which Will actually did a good job, talking about, if I go to Liberia, buy a land, right, and somebody end up reselling that land, the court process, I take that and bring it to the court and say, hey, I have a legal case here. I bought a land from Larry. Larry ended up reselling that land, and bring that case to the court. What are the legal structure to make sure that that case will be heard fairly, right? That's one. The other thing is, there's here, if I want to buy let's say if I want to buy a land in, let's say, in New York, right? Like you said, I go to the local realtors there who's familiar with the market, right? They'll probably put me in touch with somebody who's going to take me from place to place to that land. They'll probably know, like you said, know around, the neighborhoods, how much rent go for in those areas. We don't have those kind of intermediaries structures there in Liberia, right? We don't have that there. So that's why we have most of this thing that happen in Liberia, where if you go there, you probably just go with people right? You go to your uncles, your aunts, or people in the local neighborhoods, right? And that's why most of those frauds, like the other person mentioned, who paid $20,000 for their land, right? Because we don't have those intermediaries built to facilitate those kind of transactions. So the structure is fractured from a fundamental standpoint, and the process itself up to the legal system is actually fractured as well. So the whole system is fragmented. So that's why there's a higher risk there compared to here. This is why when people get money, they just say, you know what, I would rather put it here in, a real estate, residential properties here and make a little bit more money than taking that risk and going into Liberia. However, that sentiment is actually changing because there are a few players who are taking those chances now to, there's a little bit of improvement in terms of building the structure, in terms of building, like, the developers, the construction companies, the realtors. There are some people who are actively on Facebook who present themselves as realtors that you can actually go to and trust that facilitate those kind of transactions as well. So there's a little bit of a structure forming, but if in its fundamental stage, it's really fragmented. Right.
Let me pick it back off of that real quick, and then so William can answer a question. I want to then, Gabriel, if you won't mind, I want you to read. Then later you can just read John Conway's question, which I don't know if we can even post it up. But to pick it back off what Gabriel just mentioned, the intermediary, financing.
Thank you. Yeah.
How can I get financing? I'm interested in buying rental property in the U.S. Some strategies for financing. How can I get financing? So I have my down payment. how can I get financing? I want to buy a property, let's say for 100,000. I know you can't even buy a portable toilet in California for 100,000. But let's say, I mean, California real estate market is just
It's
completely
crap.
outrageous.
Will
Yeah,
can probably attest to
it
that.
is crap, and I can't even buy a outhouse in California for 100,000. But let's talk financing. How can I get financing? I got my down payment, let's say 30,000, and
Well,
then we'll talk about that question that will pop up. So, Will, help me out. I need some money to buy this property. What strategies do you
Right,
suggest?
right. Thank you. So if you're looking at the property and you're looking at it as an investment, if if you're looking at a property and it's for an investment, right? There are a lot of creative ways to get financing in the United States, right? So and I'll just list some of them, right? So one of them is, you if you need a bigger down payment, then you can engage the support from family and friends and say, hey, you know what, I got this good deal, blah 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 blah. Let's see how we can make it work. So that's just one option, right? The other option is when you go to the banks. For a rule of thumb, if you do an investment property, banks love 20 to 30% down.
yep.
They love that. 20 to 30% down shows that you have significant skin in the game.
Mhm.
And in addition to that, they know that if circumstances change, something happens, life happens, something happens, and you have to unload that property, then they know that there's enough equity for them to work with to unload that property based on certain circumstances in the market, right? So you have to be cognizant of that. The other thing is that you want to connect or consult with a mortgage broker. Now there are differences. So a mortgage broker is pretty much someone who has access to many type of financing products
Lenders. Right.
because
Well, right.
you know look, money is a product, lending is a product. So a mortgage broker will have access to many different individuals in the financial markets who are offering different products. Some of them might want just say, hey, we'll give you 90% financing, but a high interest rate, 10%. Some of them may say, hey, you know what? I'm going to lend you 80% of the money that you need, but I also going to be co-owner with you in there. There are other folks that say, hey, you know what? If this is a fixer upper, I'm going to lend you 70% of the value of that property. And then you have your traditional plain envelope lenders. Hey, you know what? You bring 30% down, you have a good credit score, right? If you have a good credit score above 620, the interest rate I'm going to give you is going to be 4%. If you have a credit score 590, then I'm going to charge you 6% or 7%, right? So there's a wide spectrum of different products. And so my recommendation is if you want to get into investing real estate and you need financing, speak to a mortgage broker. When you speak to your personal bank, for example, if you go into a Wells Fargo or you go into a Bank of America, it's not that they have products, but their products is only products that they have and that they've created at their
Okay.
location, right? So they're not going to have that big of a spectrum, but they're also, because you have a relationship with them, they do plain vanilla lending and so forth. And there are a lot of people who just love that. They have a great job, 7, 8 years working. They have that 30% down payment, Larry, for $100,000 home, right? They're going to go in there and just going to be straightforward. That's what we call a plain, simple deal, vanilla deal, right? But then there are other folks who you have to, squeeze here, squeeze there, so there are different challenges.
Yeah. Let me just add to that because I worked on the finance side of a broker before I got into banking. So there's exactly what Will said, right? If you go to a broker, the better option you have is, hey, I take your credit score. I can send that to 30, 40 lenders, and pretty much they're competing to get that loan. So pretty much, if I'm a broker, a mortgage broker, I send your file out to those 30 or 40 lenders, right? as there's better chance that I will get a better rate. Somebody will offer me a better rate on those on your file, right? The downside to using a broker is that there's higher fees, like higher closing costs, because they get paid on they charge you points, right? The same thing with hard money lenders. With the banks, the downside to that is that they'll pull your credit one time. If you don't qualify, you go to someplace else, you pull your credit again, which can end up taking a hit on your credit over and over every time you go to a different bank. With a mortgage broker, they will pull it once, they send it to like 30 or 40 or 50 lenders, how many lenders they're dealing with. So that's the side, that's the upside to that, right? With banks also as well, it's cheaper to close on the banking side, right? Again, as I said, on the mortgage broker side, you have the closing costs, the points that they charge you for the broker for brokering the loan, right? With bank, it's just a straightforward, probably I would say, depending on the closing costs could be about 5 to 7K, right? So that's the advantages and disadvantage of using a broker and or using the banks as well.
Correct.
Put John Conway's comment up there. Let's look at that. So yeah, go ahead, Gabriel. If you could kindly read that for us, please.
Yeah, is someone with no U.S. green card, no job in the U.S. allowed to buy a house for cash in the U.S.? Where about the U.S. would you recommend to get the highest ROI? Say within 2 years of buying a house bought for at about between 350 to 500K. You want to take a stab at that, Larry? I can. If you,
No, that's William touching that.
yeah, go ahead, Will.
Thank you. So the U.S., they encourage free, fair, and square investment in their territory, as long as they don't believe or have any suspicious that the funding is coming from a criminal or a terrorist
Legal sources, right?
or an illegal source. You're free to invest in the United States. And you're free to, once you provide the money trail and everything like that, of course, that's something that you work with title, escrow, and so forth. They have the expertise in looking at that. The other question you said was, what about U.S.? Would you recommend to get a highest ROI, right? Mm-hmm. So I want to talk about that, John, is that in the United States right now, even as we speak, there are some neighborhoods that will give you a 40%, 50% return on your investment. They will. But, and I say but, the question is, do you have the stomach and do you have what it takes to wheel and deal in those neighborhoods? Mm-hmm. Because some of those neighborhoods, they're very dangerous. No one goes there, and you could own a 20-unit apartment building in some of those neighborhoods, but when it comes time for you to collect that rent, even some property managers will not venture in that neighborhood. So as you're looking in the U.S., looking for a certain ROI, it's good that you want the highest ROI for your money. But I think something that we talked about is there's that risk, right? So the risk that you have here is may not be worth for you to chase that type of ROI. But you will not know that unless you're familiar with certain neighborhoods and once if you have some experience, right? So you really, if you have that kind of capital, what I always suggest is get something in a neighborhood that you would feel very comfortable living in. Get something in a neighborhood that the schools are great. Get something in a neighborhood that you believe is up and coming. And it's going to be maybe a lower ROI because you're going to be competing with other folks. But at least you know that your asset stands a better chance of potentially appreciating when the economic situations of that nation gets better. So a rising tide lift all boats, right? So you want to position yourself in that space. And I say potentially because as a licensed professional, I can tell you property are going to appreciate anywhere, because that would be speculating. I don't know what could happen, right? But those are some signs that makes an area very desirable to live. And if it's a desirable area to live, that means there's high demand. And if there's high demand, meaning it's more competitive. And so potentially you may have a lot of buyers with deep pockets wanting to purchase that product that you own, that real estate.
Yeah.
You want to touch on it, Gabriel, or you want me to touch on it?
No, go ahead. Go right ahead. Yeah.
So it's an interesting question. I really love the stuff that William has just said. If you have about, let's say 350, or you're looking to pick up property for 350 to 5K in the US, and you have no green card, and you want to buy it for cash, John, it's going to raise so many red flags in the US banking system.
Mm-hmm.
So many red flags in the US banking system. The rules in the US banking system has really changed a lot. You know, we have this whole AML, anti-money laundering rules. We have KYC, know your client. There's so many flags it's going to raise.
Right.
And even if you show up at the closing table with cash, by law, following the Dodd-Frank Act, that's a law that was passed in 2010 because of the financial crisis in 2007-8, the Dodd-Frank law mandates that the closing attorney report this stuff over to the Treasury Department. So the FinCEN, the Financial Crimes Enforcement section of the Treasury, will take a closer look at that deal. Also, depending on the country you're coming from, if you're coming from Nigeria, red flag, that's on the list of countries to look out for. Yep. In 2018, what's the guy's name? The head of the director of the FBI. Can't think of his name right now. It escapes me. But they ran a sting operation, and they arrested over 200 and something people around the world for these types of financial crimes. So you coming in with cash raises a red flag. But here's the thing. The USCIS, U.S. Customs and Immigration Service, has a program, a visa program called the EB-5. The EB-5 program says if you're investing about, let's say $500,000 in a rural community, you can automatically get approved to get residency in the U.S. You can get a green card if you're investing about $500,000 in the U.S. $1 million in pretty much any part of the U.S., you would get a green card. So there's good thing. There's some positives in terms of investing that kind of money in the U.S. So I would say maybe take that money, start a business with it to get the green card, and then try to see if you can then work your way into buying real estate. But showing up with that level of cash, it would be difficult for the banks to deal with you because they will want to know where you got that cash. They're not going to stop you from doing it, but they will want to know where you get that cash. You can, of course, you can definitely go, well, you're not going to deal with a bank because you're buying with cash. But the law firm that's going to close the deal is going to turn that over to the Treasury Department. So it's really complicated, but it would raise red flags in terms of there being some type of money laundering involved. There being kind of money laundering involved. So, you know, I wouldn't, it'll be hard for people to touch on that.
Right.
So, but again, the EB-5 visa program, it exists. You know, so someone who has that kind of money and wants to invest in the U.S. So,
yeah.
Thank you. I think that's you. Both of you guys covered everything that I think.
Larry, I think the guy name is Christopher Wray.
Christopher Wray, the head of the FBI, they ran that operation in 2018, and they picked up 200 and something people. The people that were picking up were in Nigeria. Woo, red flag. Nigeria. They picked up people in Kenya, but it wasn't just all in Ghana. It wasn't just all sub-Saharan Africa. They picked up people over in the UK, over in Japan as well. They ran a lot of operations. So yeah, some of these countries, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, if you're coming with cash to buy real estate in the US, automatically the financial enforcement unit is going to pay close attention to you. So I would kind of think about buying that kind of property if you have no green card, and you have no job, especially you have no job. Where did you get the money? That's the big red flag right there. I mean, it will run your name. And William, being in real estate, Gabriel being in investment, when you're buying a property here in the US, there's a system. So the two major, we call them quasi, you know, they're kind of false ownership of the U.S. government. It's called Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, Federal
Yep.
National Mortgage Association, and Federal Home Loan Mortgage Corp. They have this system. On the Fannie Mae side, it's called DU, Desktop Underwriter. On the
Right.
Freddie Mac side, it's called LP, right?
Right.
What happens is they will run your name through this system. This system will also check the specially designated national list. What is it? Is it no, not FARA? It's another name for it.
OFAC.
OFAC.
Yeah.
They will check your name on the Office of Foreign Asset Control, OFAC, to see if your name is on that list. If your name is not on that list, great. But still, there's so many things in place in the U.S. to really kind of stop this whole money laundering thing. And recently, we know President Biden has been pushing this agenda about going after corrupt people. So, come with a lot of cash in the U.S. to buy property. Even if you're here in the U.S., you have your hands on that kind of cash to buy property. It's not as easy. It's not that easy. Yeah. It's not that easy.
Thank you very much.
We have any more questions?
Well, yeah, that definitely. We got quite a bit. Larry, if you see something that you wanted me to kind of put up there, then I really can. But you know what? I want to talk about Liberia for a little second, right?
Yeah.
So I want to talk about investing property. So here's the whole catch. I remember being in Liberia and I said, okay, it's cost maybe 10, 15K to put up a 1-bedroom home, right? Decent, not nothing fancy, 20K maybe, right? So the question was, okay, who are you going to have to kind of rent it out, right? And when you look at it, you're like, well, someone is willing to pay $100 per month.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, times 12 months, that's $1,200, right? And if you say, hey, they're going to pay $200 a month, that's $2,400. If you spend 20 grand, you're making over 10, 12% return on your money. So that's very enticing. I think one of the things we have to look at when you're doing that kind of a style of housing in Liberia is that you have to really take a lot of time to vet your tenants a lot. You have to take time to really vet them a whole lot, because if you have to take a client to court to evict them, that $2,400 that you are making, over a third, over a quarter of that, right? Or sorry, not a quarter, over 3/4 of that money, you might have to spend with the litigations. So you're saying, okay, hey, you know what? The return was good, but the cost to take someone through the whole court system, by the time I'm done paying the lawyer and everything like that, I may have spent about $2,000, right? So you just have to kind of understand that sometimes just certain type of affordability housing that you really look at, you have to be careful with engaging in that in Liberia. It's not impossible, because over the years I've learned with a certain degree of humility that, hey, those things do work, but you're dealing with a certain mindset. You're dealing with people who they know the area. They've considered, Liberia is not chaos. Like when you walk into Waterside, right? Or you walk into West Point, right? There's a hierarchy. There's a hierarchy. And so like Susu clubs, they don't have issues with people paying back that debt. But banks have a lot of issues with people paying the debt, was because there's a certain hierarchy and a certain level of respect culturally that we have for those people who run the Susu or for our elders. And so we're able to look at them more and do whatever we got to do to make sure we pay that rent, versus when you get into the just plain business side transaction where there's not that relationship. Sometimes people skirt corners.
I'm actually glad you actually brought that up. So if you were advising somebody who wanted to build properties in Liberia for rental purposes, what are, picking back on some of the things that you're saying, what are the best way to vet some of those people? Would you strictly base it on relationships? building the relationship first, or how would you go about it? This is, I will admit to that. This is a personal question.
Yeah. Okay. So I think you got to look at it from a different angle. So
Right.
first is, who's my client, right? What's my target market?
Right.
Let's look at that. What's my target market? So if you're going for the guy who does pimping, right? They make money. But you're looking at someone like that who says, hey, you know what? I'm fine with between $50 to $75, right? So now you understand your market, you got an idea, and so you're kind of going after them. So you have to really don't go in it like one of those lone rangers, right? You got to go there and say, okay, this is what they respect. This is the personality of my client. This is the level of sophistication and so forth. So if I'm going to provide some kind of housing for them, I need to make sure that it fits what they can afford and what they're comfortable with, right? That's what I would do. Secondly is if you're going after maybe corporations that are in Liberia that they want to rent maybe a whole apartment or different things like that, then you look around and you see, okay, what are they asking for? And so you have to be able to kind of provide. Now, interestingly, during the wartime, when we're just coming out from the war, the rents were high, but the aesthetics, the look, the feel, the design, where these folks were staying, they weren't that impressive for that $2,500, $2,700, because that's what people were asking for, right? You had these weird rooms, the way the rooms were kind of built, some of the steps, the finishes and everything, right? The bathroom had different tiles. You had just like a sink. It didn't have anywhere to store stuff, right? It was just.
They were built by not actual builders, right?
Well, it was built for necessity, right? It was built because they're like, hey,
people
we're coming out the war. This is what we believe this is good. But now the taste has been refined.
Yes.
So if your taste now has been refined, you need to actually now up the game, up the finishes and everything. So if you knew going in there, I would say, look at what is there in the market and look at the clientele they're trying to go after, and adjust
build it for that.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
All right.
Oh, yeah, we can take some questions. I see Steven Sirleaf, Ramsey, Dave Coley, they all have some questions out there. Maybe we can just go through them one at a time.
Okay.
So what should the government official do?
Sorry. Let me go back to that. Apologize.
No, you can go with the next one. Yeah, you can go to Agartha, and then we can go down to Steven
Agartha
and Ramsey.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this one is from Agartha. Is it Shiley?
Yeah.
So what should the government official do when they build? When they build, we complain. If they don't build. We complain. You should spend years in government. Jesus, this is
why you never build one or two houses.
Why you never build one or two houses? Why we?
I think the point that
people cry if we are not in the government. I mean, you guys get the.
Yeah, I think what Agatha's trying to say is when government officials are building properties or building houses in Liberia, people tend to complain. When they don't build houses, people tend to complain.
Right.
But I think you can probably put it from there. Some people tend to complain, right? But I think some of the reason why people tend to complain is because sometimes the building government officials are doing, the income just doesn't justify it.
Thank you. Yeah.
And I think that's why that's the reason why people tend to complain. And then the notion or the idea that somebody is building a house, even though we know their income doesn't match the property they're building, that we should accept it because they're doing it in Liberia, I think that's a false argument. So that's just my opinion. Government officials building houses is good if it's can be justified, but they, if you're making $2,000 a month and you're building a $300,000 house in Liberia, that just doesn't make any sense. So that's just my piece. I got that. Just my opinion. So I'll ask Will.
Well,
yeah, I mean, look, I don't know how these guys have this money, right? But there is a significant. We see all around homes being built in Liberia, good quality. Some of them are from Liberians in the diaspora, and some of them are from Liberians in Liberia, right? So one of the things that I always, and I think we might transition into a little bit in this conversation, is that it's great to build a beautiful home in Liberia. Um, but the challenge I always see is when it's time to offload that home to sell the home, you're limited with buyers,
Yes.
right? So you have a very small population that's able to afford the 300,000 plus or 300,000 plus home, right? So you're going to be competing um, um,
A very small segment of
for a
the
very
population who can
small
afford
segment
it.
of
Right.
the population. Now, if we had a mortgage scheme in Liberia, that might increase that population, right? It might increase that population. But at the moment, I mean, building homes, great homes, is good. The challenge, not impossible. The challenge, I think, is when you're ready to unload it. So if you're building that home as an investment,
Mhm.
and then you want to unload it for 400,000, now comes that challenge, right? Is that okay? Who wants to buy this for that price?
Yeah, I think let's finish up the questions there, and I think we should. You're right. Let's pivot into the financing piece in Liberia in terms of how it is, how what if it's actually picking up in terms of mortgage product being available to the average Liberian trying to buy a house in Liberia. But I think let's finish up the questions, and then we can pivot into that because I think that is a great piece to talk about. Um,
Okay.
Well, I think there's one right before that. Steven Sirleaf asked something right before that. Yeah, there you go. Go ahead, Gabriel.
yeah. Say I bought my first home 3 years ago, and now I am planning to buy another one to rent out. Uh, I would like to know how do I go about acquiring another since I already have one. Well, this should be right in your alley. Home run.
Yeah. So, hey, Stephen, real quick, the first thing you want to do is you want to pick up the phone and speak to your lender.
Yeah.
The reason I say you want to speak to your lender because you want to know how much second home can you afford,
Hmm.
and if you have equity in that home, if you want to take some of that money out of it and then buy the other one and so forth. So you really want to make a pit stop to your lender first and see how much home you can really buy.
Hmm.
Once it's established how much of a second home you can buy,
Hmm.
and how much down payment you need. Now you can decide, okay, should I refinance from my existing home and use that as a source?
Yep.
Or do I have enough savings from somewhere else that I can just use?
Beautiful.
And then from there, then you're gonna go to a realtor. Now you can buy the home, you can engage in the market any way you want. You can go to a realtor, you can go on your own. I recommend that you go to a realtor
Hmm.
because they would know what the rents are, the area, the neighborhood, and so forth. And then you can start, shopping, looking for that next home that you want to buy. And they'll be able to tell you how much rent you're going to get. And then you can calculate your return on investment based on your down payment and so forth.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Larry, finish. Comment.
I'm good. Yeah, you can go to the next question. Will is on point with that. Yeah, talk to the bank. Mhm.
All right. So Ramsey Dwyer say I want to start up a group home business. How can I go up through about how can I go through about this? I need a good business loan for that business.
Yeah, Gabriel, I think this might be
I'll yeah,
your
I'll
alley
take it up.
because you're you.
Duet, Mr. Duet, if I may call you that. Startup, I don't know where part of the state you are. We do, I do a lot of startups as well, in terms of, so this is what I'm going to tell you. And again, consult your lenders. If you have a banker, talk to your banker. So you want to have at least 3 years projection. So 3 year projection meaning just do a basic spreadsheet. Say in year one, this is how much that business is going to make. In year two, this is how much going to make. In year three, this is how much going to make. Now, given that you take all your expenses, your business insurance, your employees, your salaries and wages, look at officers' comp. At the end of each year, you want to make sure you have at least, you know, you want to have a little bit of net income left to be able to pay for that loan. So let's say you're taking 200,000, 300,000, 400,000, or even half a million, right? So you want to show evidence that that business is able to generate net income, that's able to be able to finance that amount of loan you're taking out from there. We also want to know how many employees you're going to have for that group home business, right? You got to have certification for specifically for a group home, right? From the state that you're in. You can't just operate a group home. Are you going to have nurses on staff, or are they going to be, what do you call it? Are they going to be on staff, or are they going to be calling on a calling basis? Let's say somebody fall ill, you're going to have a nurse on call that's going to come in. So all of those things you have to think about. Now, if you don't have enough liquidity that means too much money to put into it yourself. If you're taking out, let's say $300,000, $400,000 loan, right? Go the SBA route. The Small Business Administration, they're very good at funding these kind of businesses. Depending on how much amount you're taking, they could do a 50% guarantee, 75% guarantee. So that means the bank would take, the 25% risk or 50% risk, and the SBA take 50% risk. So I think from a startup standpoint, those are the best things. Those are the basic things you should look at. Whatever state you're in, the SBA usually have satellite offices that if you don't have these things ready, like your projections, you can go in there in terms of your business plan. You need a business plan. Go in there, they will help you with it. They'll probably spend about 6 months with you building those things, and then they will present you to a bank to help you go about that. So I think that's where I would want to leave it. And that specifically for minority-owned businesses, there are a lot of banks creating products and services to cater to those kind of businesses right now. So take advantage of that too, whatever state you're in.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, so on that, and that's a great point, but that Gabriel just made. Definitely, you want to have a plan in place.
Yep.
My recommendation to you, Ramsey, my recommendation to you first, talk to someone who currently has a group home. There's no substitute for experience, right? Person who has a group home has walked a mile in that, they've been in there. So, you want to understand what are some of the ups and downs that they've experienced in terms of starting a group home. So you definitely want to do that. And I mean, go on social media, post something out there. Look, I'm interested in starting a group home. Can someone inbox me? We can use the internet to kind of engage. I know Liberians have a tendency to not try to, I don't want to be cynical, but sometimes Liberians have a tendency to not help each other. But there are many good Liberians out there who will be willing to talk to you, Ramsey, about it. And a group home is really a good thing. But ask yourself this question: are you getting into it for the money? Or are you actually getting into it to help people? Mm-hmm. Because if you're getting into it for the money, eventually you get sick and tired of it and you don't want to do it, right? So you should really consider this is something that you would kind of enjoy doing, helping other people. So you really want to kind of take a step back and understand who you are before you actually get into it. The thing you also want to do is, it depends, again, this goes back to what Gabriel said. It depends on the state you're in. So in certain states, you can't just open up a group home anywhere.
Yep.
It's not going to happen. Because there are zoning requirements. Yeah, there are legal and zoning requirements. Yeah. If you're in a state where they have developments, let's say you're in a place like Texas, you can't just open up a group home in any development, right? Then another thing you want to do is, in terms of financing, you want to consider leasing the property with an option as opposed to trying, because the problem is if you're new to starting a business, one of the greatest challenges you're going to run into is access to capital, because there's a high propensity for new businesses to fail. So it's kind of sketchy for banks to lend money to a new startup business. So again, what Gabriel just mentioned, place you can go to the SBA, the Small Business Administration. They have offices in pretty much every state.
Everywhere.
SBA has different types of programs. They have micro loan programs that can lend you money under $50,000. They have 7(a) program that can lend you money to buy real estate and some other things. So go down to SBA. They love to talk. You'll be surprised. You go into they're sitting over there, nothing to do sometimes. They will be happy to share information with you.
Right.
What you also want to do is contact your Department of Health and Social Services and ask them. Group home is heavily regulated.
Mm-hmm.
Gabriel sits in the financial sector. Financial sector is heavily regulated. Healthcare, heavily regulated. Call your Department of Health and Social Services and tell them, hey, listen, can you guys send me the documentation or the rules related to how I can do a group home?
Yeah.
So in essence, what I'm kind of suggesting is you need to do your homework.
Yep.
You definitely need to do your homework. Talk to somebody who has done it. But at the end of the day, you can end up owning 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different group homes, and it's very, very lucrative. Very lucrative business to get into.
It is.
So just my 2 cents, Ramsey. I hope that helps.
Yeah. And one thing I may add to that too, I think Larry touched on that. From the underwriting standpoint, this is just an inside information. From an underwriting standpoint, they're going to, whatever bank you go to, they're going to want to see at least either one of your staff, you have experience in that industry. If not, it
Yep,
will
that
be
is
a
true.
big red flag
That
for
is
them
true.
to say. They will say, this guy's going into this business. He doesn't have any experience in it. He doesn't have any person, his staff who been in this thing who has an experience. So this is a disaster. Make sure you have somebody. If you don't have the experience in the industry, make sure you have somebody on your team who has the experience, who you can put and say this person has the experience, because that's going to get looked at.
Definitely.
So Abraham, so this one's for Abraham. I can say the last name. Why would any smart investor build 400,000 home in Liberia for sale? Now the United States, that would be a different situation. That is this is, you can give us the contrast.
Well,
400,000 home in
yeah,
Liberia and here, and maybe you can look at it from a
yeah.
different market standpoint as well.
Well, Abraham, you are correct, right? It's like, why would someone do it? Now, it's not impossible because you're saying there are not enough buyers. You don't think that there's a significant amount of buyers. So yeah, I mean, but remember, at the end of the day, people build and do things in Liberia for many, many, many different reasons. But one of the underlying thing that I think is consistent is that people have a passion, right? And they've had a dream to do something that they've said, okay, when I come here to the US and when I get money, I want to go back, I want to build a big house. And what happens over the years, it took for them to work in the US, when they go back and start building in Liberia, is done, is everything is set to good to go, they realize that their temperament for the quality of life in Liberia versus the US is not what they're used to. Sometimes they just want to, you know what, I need to back out, reassess. And so sometimes these homes go to market for sale. Now, if you're in the U.S. and it depends, in California, $400,000, you build a home for that. I mean, that's a new normal here, right?
That's a studio in California, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like a
that's
2-room.
look.
He's
The
taking
average
a shot
price.
at California today.
Look,
It's like a closet in California.
exactly.
Will is in the prime real estate
Right.
market.
You're gonna be. Look, the market in California is very high.
Yeah.
Okay. And so other areas of the U.S., like you said, a different situation. So, Abraham, I think we've exhausted that one. We'll move on.
Yeah.
Uh,
So Peterson Walker. It's a good day, guys. Good program. Thanks for these insights on investment. For my opinion, I would encourage many people to invest in Liberia, considering few markets. Right. For example, real estate, the agriculture. If you conduct market research, the risks to these markets are not as high as others. With a grain of salt, I would take that. The ROI, the return on investment, is either of these areas will be high in a short distance future of your investments. You can also comment if you think otherwise. I think we have a lot to say about that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you can have, I think the risk, you're saying, hey, my risk and my return on investment, if everything goes well. Look, people are making money in Liberia. Let's not deny that.
Right.
But then also there are areas where people are really just having a very difficult time. So I think you're really going in there, and if you're lucky, you can make it happen. If you're not, you just figure it out and try to kind of navigate in and out of it. That's my opinion. But
Mhm.
I am humble because people have invested and they have been successful. So for me to say otherwise
Right.
wouldn't be good.
Right. Larry, you want to
Let,
go or you want me to go?
yeah, let me just say something real quick.
Right.
It's interesting what Peterson is saying. Will said this early on. It depends on how optimistic you are in terms of investing in the economy. But I think early on, I think it was Flomo Livingston who also said that he wouldn't invest in Liberia. He wants to invest here because he can keep his eye on his property. In Liberia, if you're here, you want to travel to Liberia, it's very expensive. But the interesting thing is, I was talking to this professor. He's based out of Hawaii. He's currently doing some work in Liberia at the University of Liberia on something related to Ebola. And he's interested in investing in Liberia on the tourism side.
Mhm.
So you have a professor out of Hawaii sees opportunities in Liberia and willing to take a chance in Liberia. I know a lot of Liberians are skeptical about Liberia, and I'll tell you in a second. Also, a young man I spoke of one time, he's a pilot, a Liberian who's a pilot for United Airlines. He's doing some investment in the real estate space in Grand Kitmount County. He
Mhm.
would take money from here in the US, get his financing, and would do some stuff in Liberia and Grand Kitmount. Also, another young Liberian that I met over in Maryland, he works over at the World Bank. He's also looking to do some massive development over in Liberia. He wants to build houses that would sell at a minimum for a little over 200,000 or so. So, and also, I met a former judge, a retired judge, Judge Bill. He's in Liberia right now. He's really big in the Liberian community in Houston.
Mm.
He has a farm over in Bummy, and he's also looking to invest in real estate over in Liberia.
Mhm.
So it depends on your risk tolerance. How much risk are you willing to take? If you're here in the US, you can take the level of risk in Liberia. Liberia has some risk now, mind you. What Flo and some other people said earlier, what Will said earlier, it depends. Because if you run into some legal wrangling, you know, because it's extremely expensive for you to travel to deal with that kind of issue.
Yeah.
But if everything goes well, your return on investment can be extremely high in Liberia.
All right.
Agriculture is a great opportunity, but we're not here discussing agriculture today. We're discussing real estate. So maybe another show, Peterson, we can come and discuss the opportunities in agriculture. But on the real estate side, for me personally, I think I would side with Flomo. I want to kind of keep my hands on my investment.
Put your money
I
where
don't
your
want,
mouth
yeah,
is.
there's an issue. It's extremely difficult to travel over there. But, real estate creates a huge opportunity to create jobs and things like that. So, yeah, that's just my 2 cents. But I'll flip this as I'll piggyback with a question to Will.
Okay.
Is there an opportunity to become someone who can flip properties, right? Whether in the U.S., can I buy a property and flip it? What opportunities and risk exist? Is that something also
Yes.
I can do in Liberia? Thanks, Will.
Yes. You can definitely flip properties anywhere. You can flip properties in Liberia. The the fundamentals are still the same with flipping. One is make sure that whoever you're buying the property from is the right owner. Number two, make sure you pull out a calculator and a pencil and make sure that that flip, however way you want to do it, make sure that it kind of pencils out so
Mhm.
that you can make a little bit of a profit on it. Those two pieces are very, very critical to flipping. They're very critical. And if you need to get a professional to help you navigate through that, do it. And it's the same way in the U.S. Now, rule of thumb: if you're gonna now let me talk about the current market in real estate in the
Right.
U.S. when it comes to flipping. Okay, so in California right now at the moment, it is a seller's market.
Yeah.
So properties are going for between 30,000 to 100,000 of the listing price.
Above it,
Of the
right.
listing price. If you are a flipper, and flipper fundamentals is that you need to buy a property for 30%
Lower.
30% lower, then you have to put in a lot more work and have to put in a lot of offers, or you have to know a lot of great people, or you have to have serious amount of capital so that you're able to jump in there and buy a property at that competitive, so that you know you have a good margin.
Right.
So as a flipper right now, things are very challenging. It's very difficult as a flipper because the margin is a little bit tight, right? Now, that doesn't mean things cannot change. That's just what it looks like for a flipper in the market in the US. But it's not impossible, but it takes a lot of effort. I've seen people flip homes where the margins is just maybe a 7% return, 10% return. They're happy with that. Of course, they're like, hey, I sold a home for 80,000. I walked away with 10% return. I'm happy, but understand Uncle Sam is going to get 30% of that 10%
That as
return,
well.
right? And taxes and all of that stuff. So you just have to know your market, know what's going on, and understand how competitive it is. But if things change, you go from a seller's market to a buyer's market. Now you have more flippers that have access. So you know you have to understand that.
Sorry about that. I ran out of minutes, man.
No problem. No problem. So guys, and I want to plug this into our listeners, viewers.
Right.
I believe in about 2 weeks, if I'm not mistaken, we will talk about some solutions to different sectors in the industry that will look into that. Liberia
Real
can
estate.
maybe look to take real estate or different things that Liberia can maybe look at from a different perspective and see how it can get that area moving.
Okay. Do we have any more comments, or should we dive into the financing piece? Because I think we should be wrapping up here. We have 15
Yeah,
more
we're gonna
minutes.
wrap up. So yeah, let's dive into the financing. Go ahead, Gergo. Finance.
All right. So this is the part that I think that you know, everything that we've talked about, especially in the context of Liberia, I think this is what makes it doable if you wanted to build, unless you're somebody here who's taking your money from here, whether you're refinancing your house here, taking money there to build, or taking money from your 401k or whatever investment to build in Liberia. Uh, for those who don't have that option, when I mean those who don't have that option, I mean Liberians who are situated in Liberia who want to build houses there and don't have other level of capital available to them. What is the financing market in Liberia that is able to allow people to do that? Over here we have the mortgage, whether it's 15 years, 20 years, or 30 years, even though you know most people don't like that, but there's that option, right, where you're able to build or buy the property that you want to, and live in and be able to pay towards monthly. What are the financing market in Liberia look like right now for diaspora or people in Liberia?
I think it's limited. Probably even non-existent. I think the biggest challenge in terms of getting financing in Liberia is, so let me just kind of play it the way how it works in the States, and then you would kind of get to understand why we have challenges in Liberia. Banks here in the States, and it's great having Will here. He's the real estate guy, so he can correct me if I say something of real estate that is wrong, because this is what FOL is all about. We had to educate and learn. So you buy a house here in the States, you go out, you get a mortgage. First of all, you don't even buy houses. It's rare that anyone will buy a house in the U.S. 100% cash down. It's rare. We always get some type of a financing. The banks that offer the financing, they don't keep their mortgage. Say, for example, the bank has like $1 million, right? They're lending about $250,000 per person to buy a house. The bank needs a way to put that $1 million back in their vault, because they can only lend to a limited amount of people. If they're lending, let's say for 10, 15, 20 years, they can't wait 10, 15, 20 years until they recoup that money to put it back. So what they do is they take that note and they sell it. They sell it to these quasi-federal agencies, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, right? Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac takes that. They don't hold on to it either. They sell it to Wall Street, right? So the folks over at Wall Street, we take that. We take several mortgages, we package it into something called a security. This is the whole securitization process. We package that as security, and then that is sold. Usually it's sold to like pension, retirement firms and things of that sort. So you see how the banks kind of recapitalize, how the banks kind of put the money back in the vault. That is what's missing. That's the key element that is missing in Liberia. Because when a bank lends out money in Liberia, we don't have the ability, that whole recapitalization process, to put the money back in the bank. It's extremely difficult. The second thing is banks in Liberia cannot lend for 10, 15, 20 years. Why? Because inflation. If a bank locked down an interest rate in Liberia, and this is one reason why mortgages in Liberia, the interest rate on mortgages in Liberia is higher than the interest rate on personal loan. It's so silly. It's upside down. Mortgages in the U.S. hovering around, say, 4 or 5% is far lower than the interest you would pay on personal loans. So when you get a mortgage in Liberia, it can't last very long because of inflation. The fact that headline inflation is like around, core inflation is around 11%. Banks need to lend at around, say, 16, 17%, which is ridiculous, right? So it's rare for you to get that kind of mortgage in Liberia, which is one reason why it's so hard to do investments in Liberia. Now, the question to Gabriel and Will as well is, can you take a loan here in the US, a mortgage loan, to finance a property in Liberia? I don't think you can.
Nope.
Because it goes back to what Emmanuel Jackson said earlier. It's the whole legal scope of things. Banks will not take that risk. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac not going to finance it. So you can't really finance so much in Liberia, right?
Right.
Go ahead.
Let me say with a caveat on that. So the reason why I, outrightly said no is because if, let's say, you're going to a traditional bank or whatever way you're getting the money, whether it's hard money lending or bank, and say, I want to take 500,000. I'm trying to buy this property in Liberia. That would be a no, because why? That property has to collateralize that loan. That property will be the collateral to the loan. Now, if you already have a property here and say, okay, I have equity in there, I want to take equity out of that property and go, they're going to ask you, hey, because every time you took out a bank from the loan, they want to know what you're going to do with that money. Now, you could say, if you say I'm going to, invest in real estate, to leave it as open as that, that is okay for future real estate investment. That is okay. However, the collateral that's going to be securing that loan will be the property that you're in. That's the only way you'll be able to do that. But let's say if you directly wanted to take money from here and say, I have this resort property land in Liberia that I want to build on, I want 5. That is definitely a no.
It leads to something called, here to throw a technical term out there, but it leads to something called asymmetric information. What that means is, in every deal, Gabriel is the bank. I'm coming to borrow money. I can tell him anything that he wants to hear. He doesn't have enough information to know what I'm actually going to do with that money. That's that risk. That was so critical, because this is what happened in Mozambique when the finance minister borrowed over $2 billion and no one knew what he was doing with the money. Even the legislators didn't even know what the guy was doing with the money. But that's another conversation for another day. But let me go to William real quick. So William, let's play this scenario. I want to buy a property. Let's say you own a property in California. Well, I'm not going to go California. You guys are too expensive. Let's talk Texas, for example. You own a property in Texas worth around, let's say, $200,000. It's been vacant for a long time. right? It's been vacant for a long time. I approach you, William, and I said, look, listen, man, I got $30,000. Can you hold a mortgage on this property? Give me the chance to kind of fix it up. When I'm done fixing it up, I can refinance it and I can pay you back. So I want you to do the financing. I can't go to the bank. Maybe I'm like what the guy John said early on. Maybe I don't have green card. I don't have a whole lot of other stuff. But I want to come to you with cash, 50,000 down, which you hold the financing for me on that property.
Yeah.
Your gut feel.
So what you're talking about seller carry financing, right?
Yes, sir.
So yes, you can do that. Very, very possible, because the underlining debt is secured by this collateral, this real estate collateral. And I know that the funding that you're talking about is going to be used to improve the value of this property. And also, as the seller carrying the note, I have nothing to lose because I don't have a skin in the game at the very beginning, because you're going to be fixing up this property. So I have a lot of control in there, and it makes me want to look at this deal a little bit more to move it forward, because there's a lot of advantages and there's a lot of risk that is actually mitigated by the parameters of this deal. So yes, I'm definitely will be encouraged to do that deal.
Sounds like a win-win.
Yeah, sounds like a great win-win. Garrett, do you want me to touch on the mortgage for?
Yes,
Liberia?
please. Yes,
okay,
please.
Thank you.
And then we'll wrap up.
Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, we'll probably talk about this more in our solutions. But
Yes.
one of the things that I want to encourage all of our listeners, the viewers, to do, I've actually posted this in the comment section. There's a report not a lot of people know about. It's the Housing Finance Africa report. And they release this, I think, every year or every 2 years. And they go through every country and they really look at housing, affordable housing in these countries, and look at the mortgage product and everything like that. Okay. It's a very great report. I posted the link in there. And what I want to read is, you guys going to find it probably very interesting to our listeners, and it won't take too long. The Liberian Bank of Development and Investment is the only bank currently providing residential mortgage loan. Mortgage underwriting at the LBDI does not favor informal income earners. As part of the requirements to secure a mortgage loan, beneficiary must submit letters of employment, proof of 3 months of earning, as well as tax clearance documents, something which informal workers do not have. Moreover, land title deeds are required to secure a housing loan, and this excludes most of the population in Monrovia who lives in urban slum. Presently, the LBDI uses two sources for mortgage finance in Liberia: a $10 million mortgage finance, which was provided by Central Bank in 2012. Both the lowest and highest interest rate of residential mortgage at LBDI remains constant in 8 to 10% respectively, while the number of residential mortgage outstanding was 337, with a total value of $815,000. The maximum residential mortgage in terms of 10 years, maximum loan to value ratio on household income is 70%, and the value outstanding non-performing residential mortgage is about 1.7 million.
Wow, that is.
So a couple of key points, key takeaways right there. First of all, your down payment to get a mortgage in Liberia through LBDI has to be at least 30%.
Yep.
Because the loan to value is, like he said, 70%, something like that.
Yep.
So 30%. Second thing is, the longest term they can give a mortgage for is 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Did he say? I think he said 10 years or something like that.
Yeah.
And this is why LBDI is probably going to end up losing money, because if inflation is like around 12% and you're lending money at an interest rate of between 8 to 10%,
You're not making anything.
You're not making anything,
Right.
right? You're not making anything. And then in addition to that, and I would love to see LBTI publish the numbers in terms of the mortgages they're doing in our country. Because in addition to that, the percentage non-performing loans, it should be around 9% or so, according to the CBL. I think it's around 26% in Liberia. So it's interesting. I'm so glad William mentioned this. I would take a look at the website, look at that data, because
Yeah.
I can see now why, real estate is not
One
big in
thing
Liberia.
that stuck to me is they have 800,000, I think 850,000 in loans that are performing well, and they have 1.5 non-performing. Do you see the you see the
1.7. Yeah.
1.7, right? So they're losing money. They have loans that are losing money that they're not making money on.
They got to
Higher.
publish the name of people. I think Ellen did it at one time, publish
Yeah.
the list of people who are not, but
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Gabriel.
No, you're
I
right.
love
I think they have
I
to
will
do
take a look at the
something
link.
drastic. They have to
Right.
do something drastic to ratify that.
Correct.
The other thing that stuck to me is that this was 10 million that was given to them in 2012. So if you have 850 in loans outstanding that are doing well and 1.5 that is not performing, let's say average you're about 2 point something million, say tops 3 million. What happened to the other 7 million? How come you're not really ratifying and owning and capturing this loan financing market in Liberia that is fragmented? Like, you have the money, the capital there to leverage this. Use it and revolutionize the mortgage financing in Liberia. But it's been since 2012, and they're at this place. That's what stuck out to me.
So,
Right.
so to all our listeners, viewers, right? For most of you probably don't know, but we are folks, part of this panel that love problems,
Yes.
and we look at problems and we look to see how can there be a solution, what can be some fixes, and so forth. So, like I mentioned, I think in about 2 weeks we'll be looking at some ways and different means through which there can be something going on within the real estate sector, right? To kind of change that. But something that I just want to bring up and kind of in like closing, right, is that when we look at certain numbers, we have to be cognizant that our diaspora that's in Western world, that's outside of Liberia, we have to ask the question, what can we do and how can we get them involved in the real estate space in a way that is palatable? And I'm talking about from a consumer, and also more importantly from a consumer, from an investor, because Liberia is one place where passion drives the channeling of money into that country. More than anything is the passion. If you're looking at the investment, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but that's not the reason why Liberians do things for Liberia. It's because there's a passion, and where there's a passion, you have an ability to then channel that from a very objective position and make it into something fruitful through investments. So with that being said, for me, it's real estate, great. It's a great piece to have in your portfolio as an investment. And we talked about it as an investment. But remember also that real estate is your home. And so if you're going to engage in the real estate, you have to first answer that question. Am I buying a home or am I buying an investment? Because the mindset is different for someone who's purchasing a home versus someone who's buying an investment property. So please, to our listeners and viewers, thank you for having me on the show to talk about real estate. Back to you, Gabriel, Larry.
Larry.
Yeah. And let me just say something real quick, and then we'll turn it over to you, Gabriel, to a close. So again, interesting conversation. Real estate is that one place where you can have leverage using other people's money to do extremely well. Liberia offers a great opportunity. It all depends on your personal gut feel. You know, if you can take all the nonsense of all that running around chasing people in Liberia, there's a huge opportunity for you to make a ton of money. If your risk tolerance is kind of low, definitely the U.S. is the place. And in the U.S., once you have good credit, and I wish we had touched on the minimum credit score you need in order to buy real estate.
All right.
That creates an opportunity for you to do well in real estate. There's so many ways to finance, like William said. You can do seller financing. You can do some other creative types of financing to get property in the U.S. as well. But yeah, again, I learned a lot from Gabriel. I learned a lot from my brother, William King, who is the guru in real estate over here, and hope to catch up with you guys next week. I think next week we'll be discussing something that will also touch on a lot of people as well, something related to entrepreneurship, something within that space. Yeah, so that's it for me, guys. Swing it over to Gabriel.
No, thank you, Prof. Thank you, William. Thank you for the, I think there's we had a lot of questions. That's why we always want this show to be very interactive with people having, a lot of questions that we can, sometimes the questions do pivot the conversation to what we initially planned, but that's the beauty of, what we do here to educate and elevate everything Liberia. And today we talked about real estate. Next week, we're talking about, Larry, help me out here, how to start.
We got to look at opportunity to start, let's say top 10 businesses to start in 2022 for under $1,000
in Liberia.
Liberia, the U.S., what can you do with $1,000? You want to start a business?
Okay.
Let's dive into that.
Yeah. So that will be the topic for next week. Again, it's always a pleasure being with you guys here. Same time next week, Saturday, we will be here. Again, well, thank you, Professor Larry. Thank you again for having you guys here, and for everybody watching us here. Thank you for the questions. Please, every time when we come on here, we want you to share this thing here, the podcast here. I know during the time that we actually air, not a lot of people actually watch it, but you sharing it. Usually, most people go back to it to watch it. We know we don't consider ourselves here to know it all. We also learn from you as well. So that's the beauty of being here with you. I think I'm talking too much. So, it was a pleasure being here with you. And as always, we don't leave without sharing our favorite song, that regardless of whether you're in Liberia looking to buy real estate or you're here looking to buy real estate in Liberia, whether you think here is the best place or Liberia is the best place, whatever your choice you want to put your money, at the end of the day, we're all Liberians, and we also just want to make sure that we do everything that will elevate Liberia. So from myself and everybody here, it's been a pleasure, and we will see you next Saturday. Thank you.
We are Liberian. Liberia is our home. Liberian people. Liberia.